My grandfather didn't raise his tone when he revealed the one truth everyone at the table hoped I would never discover. He simply placed his fork down, opened his laptop, and asked, "Ellen, did you get the email about your trust fund?" The first 10 seconds dissolved into a jumble of clinking utensils and stunned breaths. My mother froze in place. My sister stared into her plate, refusing to lift her eyes, and I felt something in me shift, like the ground had tilted beneath my feet, because I didn't even know a trust fund existed for me. And what my grandfather was about to show me didn't just interrupt dinner, it rewrote the entire story of my life. My name is Ellen Hale. And for most of my life, I believed that staying quiet made everything smoother. Growing up in a house where my sister's accomplishments were held up like gleaming trophies while my own needs were treated like faint background noise, I learned to shrink myself. I learned to speak softly, to occupy as little space as possible, to survive by never asking for too much. My mother often said, "Don't make things complicated, Ellen," in the same gentle tone other parents might use when tucking their kids into bed. For years, I took her words as truth, which is why, sitting at my grandfather's Thanksgiving table and hearing the phrase trust fund felt like someone reached back through my childhood and snapped every memory into a trust fund, mine. The idea felt absurd. I grew up stretching every dollar, spending weekends working at the grocery store, fixing thrift store sweaters myself, and asking Mom if we had anything saved for college, only to hear again and again, "We're doing our best. Money is tight." But money had never been tight. Not for Marissa, my older sister. She had dance classes, summer programs, and a brand new car at 17. And somehow it all seemed reasonable back then. She was the star, the one everyone assumed would shine brightest. I convinced myself it didn't bother me, that I simply didn't require as much. Grandpa Arthur was the outlier. He never acted like I was an afterthought. He remembered the books I loved, asked about my work at the college, attended my graduation even when my parents claimed traffic was too heavy. But even he had never hinted at a trust fund. Not once. So when he posed that question across the dinner table, confusion wasn't the only thing I felt. There was embarrassment too, the kind of embarrassment that curls inward, whispering that you must be the only one who doesn't understand what everyone else already knows. My mother's expression didn't help. She didn't look at me. She shot Grandpa a warning glance, sharp enough to carve through the air, silently urging him to shut the laptop. Before I saw more. My father kept slicing his turkey, though no one was eating anymore. And my sister lifted her glass, but didn't drink from it. Every movement felt planned, almost synchronized, like they had rehearsed this moment knowing it might come. And maybe they had, because the truth sank in even before the laptop fully faced me. Someone at that table had been making choices about my finances, my future, my opportunities. Someone had been secretly editing the narrative of my life while I focused on staying small and unproblematic. And if my suspicion was correct, this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a decade of intentional silence built on one calculated lie. Grandpa didn't hurry as he rotated the laptop toward me. His hands moved slowly, deliberately, as though giving each person at the table a chance to stop him. If they dared. No one did. The screen turned, casting a bluish glow across the plates, the candles, and my mother's tightening jaw. I leaned and my heart thudded so loudly it pulsed in my ears. Lines of emails sharpened into view. Subject, lines repeating the same phrases. "And you will trust." Statement, beneficiary, notice, contact confirmation. 10 years of messages, 10 years of updates. 10 years of information meant for me that I had never received. For a moment, I desperately reached for any explanation. Maybe the bank had the wrong address. Maybe there was another person named Ellen Hale. Maybe this was some ridiculous clerical error. Anything that would allow me to believe my mother was right when she muttered, "That can't be right," as if she were the one blindsided. But then I clicked the sender. Details. And what popped up dissolved. Every fragile excuse. The contact email didn't belong to me. It never had. It was a slight variation of my mother's. The address she used for utility bills and financial documents. One I'd seen countless times. My stomach plunged. Why would this be going to your email? I asked, not accusing, just trying to breathe through the collapse of everything I thought I understood. My mother didn't flinch. I don't know, Ellen. Banks make mistakes all the time. But Grandpa didn't take his eyes off her. They don't make this kind, he said quietly. A faint red crept up my mother's neck. My father shifted, maybe preparing to defend her. But nothing came out. Marissa darted her gaze between them, confused or scared, or perhaps simply worried about how this might affect her. I opened the oldest email, year 10. I remembered that year vividly. It was when I asked my parents if they had anything set aside for my college expenses. Because my scholarship didn't cover everything. Mom had said, we're doing our best. But money is tight. Except, money hadn't been tight. Not for the person those emails were intended for, not for me. I scrolled into the next year, and the next. Each email matched a moment in my life when I had begged for help and been told to cope alone. Nights I skipped dinner to save money. Days I walked to class in downpours because my car was broken and repairs weren't in the budget. Summers I picked up extra shifts while Marissa attended dance programs out of state. Every memory sharpened under the cold light of the screen. Grandpa finally broke the silence, steady as stone. Ellen, these are yours. They always were, and someone made sure you never saw them. The room felt smaller, denser. I could feel my mother's stare drilling into me. Half alarm, half warning. I closed the laptop softly, not to end the moment, but to keep myself from shaking, because now I knew it wasn't an error. Someone had deliberately rewritten the circumstances of my life. I didn't reopen the laptop right away. I simply rested my palms on the warm lid, letting the heat seep into me. 10 years of statements. 10 years of silence. 10 years of being told to be practical, patient, grateful for scraps. And all the while, the support I'd begged for had existed in my name, hidden right in front of them. My chest tightened as memories returned, sharp as needles. The night my card declined at the bookstore and I faked a smile, pretending I'd forgotten to transfer money. The winter break I worked overtime just to make rent while Mercer posted photos from a week-long dance program funded by her parents. The afternoons I cried quietly in a bathroom stall, overwhelmed by how I'd pay for textbooks again. And every time I asked Mom if we had anything saved, she smiled like she was humoring a child. Life's expensive, Ellen, we all have to make do. No, she had made sure I was the only one making do. Across the table, Mom straightened suddenly, trying to take back control. We're not jumping to conclusions, she said, as if this entire situation were an emotional meltdown I was causing. Ellen doesn't understand how these things work. Finances are complicated. Her words stung deeper than they should. That tone had followed me my whole life. Dismissive, patronizing. The tone used on a child poking where she doesn't belong. But Grandpa wasn't letting it slide. Elaine, he said slowly, explain why her contact information was replaced with yours. Her eyes flicked toward my father, quick, sharp, almost commanding him to step in. He moved, but didn't speak. So she tried again. I handled all the household paperwork. If something needed changing, maybe I updated it by accident. An accident for 10 years. Every year, like clockwork, every single statement, someone might have believed her. But not me. Not anymore. I stood, pushing my chair back slightly. The wooden legs scraped the floor, slicing the thick silence. If it was a mistake, I said quietly, then why was I the only person in this family who didn't know I had a trust fund? Why did I struggle while Marissa? Don't drag your sister into this, Mom snapped, her voice finally cracking. Marissa shrank back, eyes widening. I kept my tone even. I'm not dragging her into anything. I'm asking why someone made sure I never learned about what belonged to me. For the first time all evening, my mother had no immediate response. Her mouth opened, closed again, her fingers knotting the napkin into creases. Grandpa leaned forward. Ellen, you deserve the truth, and you deserve control of your own finances. Control, a word never offered to me before. I drew a deep breath. This ends tonight, I said, and my voice stayed level. No shouting. No tears. But something inside me solidified, sharp, steady, certain. I wasn't the quiet daughter anymore. Not this time. Grandpa pushed his chair back, rose carefully, his each showing in his joints, but not in his authority, and looked around the table as though assessing who he could still trust. Then, with the same calm that unsettled everyone, he said, "We're not finishing dinner until we understand what happened here." My mother went rigid. My father shifted. Marissa swallowed hard. Grandpa motioned toward the living room. All of us, let's go. We moved together, a tense, reluctant procession, from the dining room to his study. The lighting there was softer, warmer, but the air felt colder. There was something about stepping into a space filled with framed certificates, leather-bound books, and our family crest that made lying feel impossible. This room demanded honesty. Grandpa set the laptop on his desk. Sit. No one disobeyed. I stood behind the chair he pulled out for me, gripping the top for balance. My mother sat beside my father, bracing herself for a fight. Marissa hovered near the doorway, as if hoping she could fade out of this moment. Grandpa opened the email archive. The glow from the screen shows everything, he said. He clicked on an email from 10 years earlier, the year I turned 17. This is when the contact information was altered. The screen displayed my original email crossed out, replaced with a new one. My mother single quotes s. Clear. Intentional. Timestamp. Mom single quotes s. Breath trembled. That could mean anything, she blurted. Banks update information automatically. They don't. Grandpa interrupted. Not without a guardian or account holder requesting the change. I looked at my father. Did you request it? He shook his head, unable to meet my eyes. No. Then who did? I asked softly, already knowing. No one answered. Grandpa clicked again, opening the follow-up confirmation. A message thanking the user for verifying the new contact details. Its timestamp matched an IP address from our home in Seattle. No ambiguity. No confusion. Mom single quotes s. Voice cracked. I was only trying to keep things organized. I stared at her, the woman who taught me to say thank you for every scrap, who insisted life was easier when I didn't expect much. Organized, I repeated. Mom, I worked double shifts while money under my name sat untouched. She recoiled as if the words struck her. You were too young to understand responsibility. I didn't want you relying on money you didn't earn. I let out a quiet, humorless breath. But Marissa could rely on hers. Marissa flinched. I didn't know it was yours. Ellen, I swear. Mom said don't. Mercer, stop talking. Mom snapped. But the truth was already out. Grandpa leaned back in his chair. Elaine, you didn't organize anything. You withheld a financial asset from the person it belonged to. Mom's voice sharpened with defensiveness. I did what I needed to do for this family. For stability. Ellen never needed much. And Marissa needed more. Is that your reasoning? I asked quietly. She pressed her lips together. Dad finally spoke, voice low and guilty. Elaine, we should have told her. We should have. Mom whipped her head toward him. Richard, not now. But Grandpa didn't let her escape it. You lied, he said, to me and to Ellen. For 10 years, Mom's jaw trembled. Arthur, please. You don't understand. I understand enough. He opened another email, a trust notification from 3 years earlier, the year I was juggling rent, classes, and my campus job just to keep the lights on. The year I cried alone in my tiny apartment, convinced I'd failed at adulthood. The subject line felt cruel now. Annual allocation update. Money that could have changed everything. Money I had been barred from knowing existed. Mom, I whispered. Why? She shut her eyes, a single tear sliding down. But her voice remained defensive. Because you would have made foolish choices. You're sensitive. You get overwhelmed. I needed to protect you from wasting it. My chest tightened. Protect me? Yes, she insisted. And if you knew about the trust, you'd have left home too quickly. You would have gone your own way without thinking. And there it was, the truth she hadn't meant to admit. She hadn't hidden the money because I was irresponsible. She hid it because she was afraid I would grow independent without her permission. That wasn't your decision, I said, barely above a whisper. My mother shook her head as if denying the plain reality in front of her. Everything I did was for this family. Grandpa's voice sharpened. Then why didn't you redirect Marissa's trust emails? The question shattered every excuse she clung to. She had no answer. Silence filled the room until Grandpa finally turned to me. Double quotes, Ellen. You should have full access now. All of it. If you want, I can call the bank representative tonight. I nodded. I want that. Mom jerked upright. You can't just. I can, Grandpa said. And I'm going to. She looked at me, eyes glossy, voice cracking. Ellen, please, we can settle this privately. No, I said. This time, nothing gets hidden. Mom stood, but her knees buckled, forcing her to grab the edge of the desk. You don't understand what this means. If you take control, everything we've built. I cut her off softly. Mom, you didn't build it. You took it from me. Those words hit harder than anger ever could. She sank back into her chair. Grandpa rested a hand on my shoulder. You're doing the right thing for the first time. I agreed. Later that hour, the bank representative called back, confirming that all communication and access were now legally assigned to me. Hearing my own name listed as the rightful contact felt surreal, like stepping into a life I should have lived years ago. Grandpa squeezed my hand, proud, but letting me have the moment. Mom stayed hunched in her seat, no longer arguing. Dad finally looked at me, guilt softening his expression. Marissa murmured a shaky apology as she slipped out of the study. That night, when the house emptied, I sat alone in Grandpa's study, scrolling through the newly restored notifications. 10 years of what ifs. 10 years of choices stripped away. 10 years of silence. But now, finally, I held the reins of the trust, of my future, of the story they tried to script without me. I left Grandpa's house with nothing but my coat and a decade of clarity. For the first time in my life, my future belonged to me, not the people who feared what I would become if I knew the truth. If this story touches something in you, share your own experience below and subscribe for the next chapter.